Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I am so happy you're here today. If you are an Ashtangi yoga practitioner, this episode is especially for you. I think many of us have been, maybe searching, looking for answers since our beloved teacher, guru, friend, guide, Sharath Jois passed away suddenly back on November 11th here in North America, November 12th in India. And today, Russell and I are sitting down to chat with two fellow Canadians who I've known David Robson for over 20 years now, and we are going to talk to them a little bit about what it means to carry the wisdom of the Ashtanga yoga practice and the lineage into the future and how we can move forward. And there's been a lot of talk lately on the Ashtanga yoga grapevine through social media, through podcasts, through blogs, looking for answers. Different teachers, different people trying to connect and understand where we go now, collectively, individually, what grief, what wisdom grief has for us on a personal level, but also as a yoga community, an international yoga community. And so this conversation feels particularly important because David was one of the teachers who was certified recently in Mysore by Shruti and the Jois family at the Sharath Yoga Center. And Jelena also received her authorization. And we're not just sitting down to talk to these beautiful souls about this process and revealing sort of how it happened for them, but we're touching on something that I feel is much more important, which is where do we find our strength as a community, and the strength in shared memories and in connection to each other and a love for this tradition and this practice, and what it actually means to be entrusted with passing on a spiritual tradition, a spiritual practice, especially during times of transition, and how we can show up for each other and for ourselves as a place of comfort, as a place of belonging, as a place of support during these times when grief and mourning and uncertainty are prevalent. And so I hope that this conversation brings both a joy and a lightness to your heart. I hope it brings a sense of trust and certainty that whatever path you're on, wherever you are in the cycle of loss or in trying to find yourself again, or maybe you're unaffected by everything that's been going on, that's beautiful too. And I hope that this conversation leaves you feeling inspired and with a sense of strength and a sense of moving forward, an ability to move forward as an individual, as a practitioner, as a student, as a teacher, as someone who loves the Ashtanga yoga tradition or lineage, and all of the teachers who have been blessed with this beautiful seed to share, to transmit, to honor, and and guide others along this path. I know from myself having this conversation, it felt very inspiring and very healing. And I hope that for you, it also brings a deeper sense of unity and healing and fellowship to wherever you are in the world listening to this conversation. We love you. We wish you well. And we hope that you have community and you have teachers on your path that are inspiring and guiding and uplifting and holding that flame bright for the practice and for your own connection to yourself, to the inner guide, and to the teachers within. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and today we have a...
You want to introduce your co-host?
No, we have a...
I just want to say that this episode today is brought to you by Bublé. Bublé is Canada's soft drink, and it's the drink that Michael Bublé drinks when he wants to refresh himself on a Saturday afternoon like this one.
Well, we are here, in fact, indeed, with fellow Canadian teachers.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, welcome to Canada.
Yeah.
David Robson from Toronto and Jelena. What's your last name, Jelena?
Vesic.
Vesic.
Thank you for pronouncing it for me.
Thank you for asking. You're saying Jelena well, though.
Yeah,
Jelena Vesic. That's good.
Are you Canadian or are you just a visitor here like Russell?
I'm a permanent resident.
I'm a step ahead of you. I am a Canadian.
Only just it's getting close for me. I'm definitely looking at becoming a Canadian citizen.
Yeah, I would understand why.
Yeah, because I'm Jewish, and at some point they could ask for me to have me flown back so they can put me in a fucking camp, right? So I want to make sure the Canadian government says, well, he's a citizen, not just a Jewish permanent resident that we can get rid of.
No. Yeah, so you need to ship that.
Yeah.
If you do not want to fly.
I do have a lot of family in Ontario. My great uncle Alan is 101 years old. If you're listening, Alan, and great fan of the show, Uncle Alan.
Okay, but this show isn't about you, Ag.
No. We're talking about Canada, right? So you guys, where are you? You're in Toronto?
Toronto.
Are you from there?
I am, yeah. I'm from near the suburbs, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, and where were you born, Jelena?
I was born in Sarajevo, actually. That's my
Amazing.
hometown. So today that would be Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yes, I've been there. That's one of my favorite cities in the world.
Did you?
So that's kind of crazy. A good friend of mine who is from Sarajevo told me a very good joke about Sarajevo, but you really kind of have to be in the mood for it. Are you in the mood for a Sarajevo joke?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the difference between Auschwitz and Sarajevo?
Oh, God. I don't know.
Well, at least in Auschwitz, they had gas.
That's not nice.
Well, it was true at one time.
Yeah, the war was it was
war was-
horrific.
Yeah. Were you there for that?
I was there for the first 4 months. Yeah.
Wow. And
That
is that
Were you?
That's why we came to Canada eventually. We were there for the first, because no one really believed that it was going to happen. And everyone was in a denial. And I remember when the news started, I was, how old was I? I was like a kid.
Yeah, you must have been like 8 or 9 or something.
9, yeah. And you just, you can't comprehend the idea of civil war as a kid at that time. And then the war started, and I remember it. We were always, getting ready to run down in the basement of the building and hide. And then eventually, we would be outside playing, and then you see the grenades flying over your head as a kid. And so my parents then made a call that we needed to leave. But the problem was, because it's a war, the men couldn't leave unless you had a medical exception. So then it was me, my mom, and my sister. We flew out on the very last flight, which was a cargo plane. So 500 people sitting in a pitch black on the bottom of, like, sitting, because it's a cargo plane. There's no seats.
Yeah.
And we left. And that night was the biggest kind of attack that happened in Sarajevo, and like when it really started. And then we lived in Serbia, as my mom's sister lived there.
Mhm.
And then when my dad eventually managed to escape the war, he literally escaped to Croatia, because that's also where we had a lot of family. And at that time, it was few countries, including Canada, were bringing in the refugees from former Yugoslavia region and giving priority to people that have been separated because of war. So my parents applied for, I think, Holland, Canada, and Australia. And Canada was the first to respond.
Wow.
And so we
Good.
came 96 as refugees to Canada. So it's been long.
Yeah.
I've been here.
30 years.
Yeah.
I was in art school at the time, and there was a lot of work kind of around the issues and plight of the people in Sarajevo, and that's when I met my friend from Sarajevo, and he showed me.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, he was showing me a film, and then he taught me that joke.
Like very dark humor.
Yeah.
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 But it's a beautiful city.
What
and
did you like about it? I
I
had
just,
a lot of relation,
really?
but
Have you been back there?
many times. We were just
Yeah.
like
there in
in
December.
December. My grandma's there. I have friends there.
I just think it's so, I don't know, it reminds me of like kind of like a magical little fairy tale land.
Yeah, it's
But
definitely.
it's also really sad. There's like a deep sadness there, and I personally really love that.
That's why you married me, sweetie, isn't it? You have the same feelings towards me.
There's like this
Sad.
heavy, dark sadness,
Yeah.
but there's also like
I
this
walk around the
magic
house
in
like
it,
that.
you know? There's this
And there's the magic as well. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it is. When did you go? Which month was it? Do you remember?
it was back in 2016. So, yeah, I guess like 10 years ago now.
10 years ago? Yeah. But what month?
It was maybe March.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You need to go in like December if you really wanna like feel sad. Because you gotta see all those like communist, brutalist buildings, and there's no sun coming out because we're down in the valley.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
like
I'm
it's
sure.
gray and dark. I mean, we're here, and David's like, why did I come here in December?
I can imagine because it also they kept the bullet holes from
Yeah.
the war and
Yeah,
everything. It's
same-
very like you feel it. It's
Same in Budapest. Remember
Yeah.
that building?
but even more in Sarajevo. Just it's a little intense. But
Yeah. And it's, it's so much better than the way it was. And there's like a lot of fighting about it because a lot of people want to get things fixed up and as a way of moving forward. Because in a way, it's like a trigger. And for me,
Totally.
too, like it's a trigger. But I can't even imagine for people living there how difficult that is. But then on the other side, some people see it as a memory, as a reminder of what has happened, which just is true. And then there's a group of people that also use it to keep facilitating the hate and the division
Right.
between the people because it's their political advantage, unfortunately. Like, a story repeats itself again and again around the world.
yeah.
Yeah, if you can harbor resentment and grievance, like that person really needs sympathy, but they're often destructive to their environment.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely. Yeah.
But like, what do you do with someone who is that damaged?
Yeah. How do you sympathize with them and show them kindness, but their behavior is also very troublesome. And I wouldn't say it's okay in any way,
Yeah.
to act out that way. So
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I say this to people sometimes, like, well, I have freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want. I can, call you whatever I want to. It's like, well, you don't have freedom of hate speech. I think that's pretty well established.
Yeah.
We hope.
Mm.
The other thing I thought was really interesting about Sarajevo, just to talk about it a little bit more, was that it's like an Islamic country, but not the Islam that's like the desert Islam so much. It's more like modern day Islam. And
Like Turkey?
kind of, yeah, like parts of Turkey for sure. I mean, Turkey depends where you go but it felt very like kind of nice, like not oppressive.
Like
Turkey.
Yeah, like parts of Turkey.
Turkey. Yeah, depends who you talk to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Depends who you like. I've been
feel-
spend time in Turkey too, and it's like depends who you ask.
Yeah, and what part you're in, right?
I feel the same about the United States, actually.
Yeah, maybe.
Parts of it are fine.
Yeah, there's nice people there, I hear.
A couple.
Yeah, I know you, them too.
A few.
We know all.
Yeah, we know all of them.
What attracts you to the magic darkness, David? Because
Of the
you
element?
seem very much in love. Yeah, the two of you seem very, very much in love, and there's a real kind of special chemistry there. And
great.
every time I've seen you or heard about you, it's like I've seen the two of you having your special magic chemistry, and I'm wondering. So what attracted you to the darkness? Why? What's there for you?
Oh, yeah, it's very interesting.
I think she hit it really well, and I didn't really discover it.
2 years
When I
into
got
it, and
closer.
David's like, you say you dealt with your shit. And I was like, well, it's generational trauma. It's coming up because I'm 38.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't suspect any of it was there at all. Yeah. So
It's true. It's like, I swear it's true.
seems so nice and balanced.
What did your folks do? Like, did they also come from Sarajevo, David? They're from They're from Tirana.
No. My mother is she's an immigrant too, but she came over when she was a baby from
From
England.
where?
England.
From England.
England.
Yeah.
Wasn't she like a month old or something?
Yeah.
Like 2
On the
months?
Queen Mary on the ship.
Yeah.
Oh, an
Nice.
Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
And
okay.
my father is born near Toronto. Yeah.
Okay.
Of Scottish heritage.
Yeah, like harmony. Yeah, for sure. Have you been out to Calgary, which is like the most Scottish city in the world?
He's been here.
Have you?
I've been there once, I think. One.
I've never been.
You've only been here once?
Hmm.
Oh, and I was fortunate enough to go for coffee with you on your one trip to Calgary.
Oh, that's good. That's done. That's
Done.
bucket list
Yeah.
marked. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well,
So
I
what did
didn't notice all the Scottish people that I didn't know.
all of the
Wow.
street names and Calgary itself is
It's a Scottish town.
It's a fishing village on the
Oh.
west coast of Scotland. So they came here and they settled the place, realized that there were natives and they were going to have trouble with that, and they've kind of been negotiating the space ever since.
Oh, wow. I just,
I'm curious because I've known David for a long time. I don't know. We met in Mysore in 2005,
I
I
did have a
think.
follow-up question
You did?
about his parents.
Okay, go for it.
I did want to know what your parents what does your dad do?
Well, he doesn't do much because he's dead.
Oh, yeah.
And he was alive.
Did.
Yeah. He was a social worker. Before that, this is
He's a
interesting. He was a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
He left
a lot of pieces fell into place there.
Yep.
Me. Okay.
Yeah. He left the
Yeah.
priesthood. I've got a picture of him on the wall over here. He was actually a missionary in Guatemala
Oh.
for a
Oh,
while.
fantastic.
It's like wearing the white robes and everything.
Yeah.
Did he leave before or after
Yeah.
you met your mother?
Well, he said before. So,
We're not sure.
Okay, so now I understand you completely. So that's good. So you decided,
Love you.
like your dad, to go into to take the cloth.
It's a
And
calling. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
calling.
it's a calling. That's
Like,
right. And when did that happen for you? Do you want to talk about him meeting him in Mysore, or do you want to like find out why he got there first?
Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah. How did you? How did? Where? How did you found a yoga class somewhere? You were.
yes. No. I found a yoga class somewhere.
But why?
Why
Why did you go into yoga all those years
that
ago when it was
class?
weird?
Why you?
Yeah, I was always into mysticism, even from
Did you
being
say domesticism?
No,
domestic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
mysticism.
Mysticism. Okay.
I think
Sorry.
it was Yoda actually. Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
Yoda kind of turned a whole
Turned a
generation.
whole generation of
Yeah.
us into
Lot
yes.
Matthew Sweeney said that in his book. He said, "Yeah, it's because of Star Wars. As I
Yeah,
got into yoga."
it'd
Me
be,
too.
it'd be
Yeah,
great.
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was into. I think the whole special powers and then
Yeah,
experience.
learn to float is coming into my mind as you're,
Yeah.
talking about this.
Experiences
For
with
sure.
drugs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then trying to recreate those experiences,
Yeah.
those states of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Same.
yeah.
Mm.
LSD
And so
was
what?
formative.
Yeah, let's do. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just said this to
Richard and
Richard
Mary.
and Mary 2
Mhm.
days ago, that our beloved dear Rolf, he said to us, use LSD, kick the door in. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the main advice I took from him. Yeah. But I'd already done it, so it was like I
And
got
he
that
said
one.
once you kick down the door, then you do the yoga.
Yeah, but now you know where to go. And
Right.
if you don't know where to go, you're just like looking for good sensation.
Yeah. Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be
I mean,
terrified.
I
when
haven't
you
done
do
it
yoga. That's
anymore.
my
I haven't done it in a long time. Long.
No.
no.
Well,
Yeah.
once you do it once, you don't need to do it
Yeah,
again.
I
I
Or
think
think
that's
yeah.
or like 40 times is fine.
I think it kind of doesn't spoil you, but it turns you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
No.
yeah. So I think this is in the same vein in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so when the word yoga comes up to your mind, you see it like on a pamphlet on the side of a grocery store. You say, "Oh, that's for me. I'm going to go to that class."
Yeah. So I'd read about yoga, and yoga was emerging, in the 90s a lot more. It was showing up on the streets in studios. I was at university, U of T, studying comparative religion. They called it back then,
What's it called now?
religious studies.
Oh, okay.
Then, but because you can't compare them.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're all unique.
So then somebody told me that I should go to this class, that I would probably like it, and so I did that, and I did like it. It was very, very relaxing. It was Shivananda style,
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
And I remember that like lying down, and
Yeah.
and that deep release at the end. And Yell and I have talked about this. We think a lot of people have that deep surrender that first time, maybe, or
Yeah.
afterwards, and then they keep coming back hoping to get there again.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
But this was like, and sometime after he fell on the altar, broke the altar at the studio.
Had a little accident, but they were very kind about it. Yeah.
At your first class, you broke the altar?
No, it was like I was well in. I was like maybe
Okay.
3 months or 4 months in. I fell on the altar. Yeah, but then from there, things were coming to Toronto back then, probably, a little slower than some other places in the world, quicker than others. And so a Bikram studio opened just down the road,
Ah.
and I ended up
Oh.
going to Bikram yoga.
Did you become a sex slave?
Just, I mean,
Almost.
so I never did the training, but that's how I ended up teaching yoga. The guy that owned the
Wow.
studio taught me how to teach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
which involved a whistle and a stopwatch
And tiny shorts.
and tiny shorts, and I memorized the kind of script.
Well, everybody was required to wear the same tiny shorts. That's amazing.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was amazing.
A little bit graphic.
That's
It was wild.
Okay,
Well-
but then when we met, you were doing handstands like on the beach with Ron Reed.
oh cool.
With Ron Reed, what beach?
Well, maybe I don't know. You were with Ron Reed and then doing handstands and then the beach yoga kind
Yes.
of.
Oh,
or
the beach.
yoga by the beach.
Which
Yeah,
beach
I
in
see
India?
what you're saying,
No,
yeah.
in Toronto.
You went to the beach in Toronto?
I don't know. I just he knows. He knows
What?
what I'm talking about.
The Hudson River? What?
Back in like 2000, then because I kept exploring other styles at the same time. Ashtanga was also, in a way, in a form, in Toronto, with Ron Reed and downward dog yoga. And so I started going there, and they had a Mysore program as well. So around 2000, I started going daily to that. And then I became part owner at this beach yoga, which was downward dog. Yeah, good memory.
Yeah, yoga by the beach.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what did you go see Sharath when he was there? I think it was like 2000 or Guruji and Sharath when they were on tour.
In
maybe.
Montreal. They came to Montreal.
Yeah,
So, yeah. I saw them there. That was 2002.
too.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was my first
Yeah.
time meeting Sharath Jois.
amazing.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
he said, come that year. And so that's my first trip to India that year too.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that trip when you went to India, your first time.
That was Lakshmipuram, 2002.
I started in Lakshmipuram, but they were just moving it over. So
Yeah.
I went to Lakshmipuram, but they just shut down the shala there.
Okay.
And so they were opening Gokulam.
My first trip was probably like 2 months later.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So you
Yeah, I
were.
think you were there at the same time.
Yeah, we were there almost the same time. Was Kano there when you were there?
Yeah.
Probably?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the same trip for me because I
But
was on the tail end of her trip.
You were studying with Patari Jois.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gokulam.
I was studying with Sharath in Gokulam too.
Okay. Oh, you were one of those.
Yeah. Yes. We're like the first 4
He
years.
was like Sharath's first student ever.
Wow. Well, now more pieces are falling into place for me.
Me
Yeah.
and
Todd,
Todd
yeah.
was there. I think
Yeah.
a year or two later. And
Oh man.
there was like 12 of us. I stayed there
There was
4.5 months that first time just with him. And like slowly people were leaving. There was like 3 or 4 of us by the end of that trip.
as you know Paul and Rochelle in Toronto, of course.
Yeah.
I used to go.
Here. Yeah.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
We co-hosted Sharath Jois here
Yeah.
in Toronto. Yeah, Paul and
That's
Rochelle.
right.
That was
That's
what,
right. Yeah.
as in
I
why?
used to.
Yeah.
They were old friends of mine, and I used to go and stay with my dad, and I stayed with them once in Toronto. That season when they decided to go study with Sharath instead of Guruji, they were living with me at the time, and it threw such a wrench into our relationship, and it was so bananas. And then
But it was 2000. I think that was 2000.
it was much later, but I'm just remembering, them making that decision to transfer over to Sharath's
But I
class.
thought the problem was I think they couldn't sign up for the shala. They got
Yeah, that's right.
like rejected
And they
and
got
sent to Sharath's class.
They got
'cause-
rejected in
Wow.
Sharath's class, and then they also got rejected from Pattabhi Jois's pranayama
Yeah,
class.
because you had to be studying with
And
Patami
then-
Jois to do his pranayama.
And then I'm doing the pranayama class but I'm doing it, and then I'm going home and practicing. And Paul was like, "Can you teach me?" And I was like, "I don't know if I can
Oh,
teach
no.
you." And it's like, "Oh, you're an asshole." It's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of an asshole."
Yeah.
And it just kind of blew up a relationship.
Because I remember that trip because I got there in January and it was before there was applications or anything like that.
Yeah.
And there was already, I think, 200 people or almost 200 people signed up for the main shala.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was closed.
And we came in and we said, "Oh, we're here to register with Guruji," and Sharath's like, oh, he's full. And Saraswati came out and she said, no, they're old students. They can register. And she pulled us into
Well,
we
he was going to
registered.
take you.
And Paul and Rochelle were right behind us. And he said to them, no, you're coming with me.
Ooh. That was brutal.
yeah.
Like it's I
The
guess
drama.
more the drama. It's more to the point, like to talk about like how, for our listeners, how bananas and Byzantine the drama and the politics were just between the family members.
Yeah.
Never mind all the rest of us and our, junior high bullshit that we
Like
were
20
bringing
years ago.
20 years ago to the
It
table.
was a long time back.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
a
it
lot
was.
to negotiate,
Yeah.
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 And
And
even like there in the scene, I remember like, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, you and Todd studying with Sharath, it was like a totally different kind of group compared to the people who were at the shala. There's like discrimination involved. Like,
Yeah, there was. You wouldn't
Yeah,
eat with those people.
We're lessers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
we would go into the main shala, the big shala, on Sunday and do the lead class.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so the day you
Infuriating.
guys weren't there, and then there was a funny separation, though. I was totally identified with being his student,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I didn't mind it. I didn't think of it as being less, because I had already decided when I met them in Montreal that I wanted to study with Sharath.
Yeah.
At that point,
Wow.
he was my age, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could sort of feel his practice, and I was really into that,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And the student always chooses the teacher. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the truth of it. As a student, you resonate with the teacher and
Yeah.
you choose the teacher, actually. The teacher doesn't choose you. You
Yeah.
choose the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, when I arrived too, because they were just opening up the new shala in Gokulam, it wasn't open yet, so everybody was practicing at Saraswati's old house, down
Yeah. Yeah.
shala.
I lived there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And even everybody that even was going to go to the main shala, I remember that year it was like really busy. There was 40 people or something. Well, before they had the rugs and stuff.
Yeah, it was It was so full with 40 people.
Yeah. And so we were all practicing together for like 3 or 4 days or a week or something. And then the shala opened and they went there, and then we stayed.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was happy with it. I mean, it was different, but I was getting attention from
Sure.
Sharath.
But he was also falling asleep too.
Yeah, he would fall asleep during
He'd
that.
be so tired from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His like flip phone,
How many people were in the room with you?
like I think 12 max. It was,
Wow.
yeah. We were down the hill at Saraswati's place down there, and then across the street from the Gokulam shala in her, that, on the second floor,
Yeah. On the second floor there.
the,
Yeah.
like in 2004 or 5. I was just talking to Todd Bowman about these years. He's such a good memory.
Oh my God, he has a crazy memory. He can almost memorize like whose mat was where and like.
I think all the LSD muddled my
Might have muddled some
I
things.
Yeah,
recall.
like hot.
But it's, I heard this about memory once, and I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but if you remember your last holiday, the mind this is the way that people who specialize in memory, how they memorize like a list of things, is if you remember your last holiday and your last family get together, I would bet that everyone here in the conversation can remember where everyone was sitting around the table.
I can't.
What was your last holiday meeting? Which was probably but I can remember our last Easter that we spent, the very last Easter that we ever spent with your family, because I will never do it again. I remember it was your dad, your right, you were to my left, then your mom, then Adam, then Amanda, then Ari and Addison.
But you could just be making that up.
No, I'm not making it up. I see it.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah,
people who do memorization, they what they do is that they'll put a card, like if you have to memorize a basket of fruit, it's like you put a card in place of each of those people. So banana, orange, apple, peaches. And like that's how you memorize a group like that, is you create a table that people sit around.
Oh, that's
And so the yoga room is the same. I can remember where people put their mats.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I think the more important thing is your emotional connection to the people. That's what makes memory actually cement in, is if it's an emotional connection.
Well,
So
what kind of sociopath doesn't have an emotional connection with people?
yeah, but like you can't have an emotional connection with 80 people. So you
No,
have like
no.
an emotional connection with 3 people in the room or 5
Yeah.
people in the room, and you remember where those people were because
And
there's a
that's-
relationship.
And that's why
there's-
family works. That's
Yeah.
why they use family. Yeah. But
Anyway,
a lot of these people we treated as though they were our family.
they were actually. A lot of
Yeah.
them felt like family. I'm sure you and Todd feel like family too
Brothers.
after practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say there's a connection between two of you, like for sure.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, we're brothers in that sense.
I'm Todd.
And
now.
how?
I'd like to talk about one thing, because you guys are phenomenally attractive teachers, and I mean that in that students
guess
come
it.
to you, and I remember
Attract.
I remember realizing this early on. I was staying at Paul and Rochelle's house in Toronto, and they were telling me about this guy David that had opened up a class, and Paul and Rochelle had been there for ages, and they'd always had 10 students. Because every time they would get a new student, another student would just fuck off and leave, and it's like, I'm out of here, peace out, you guys are difficult.
Equilibrium, it's hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
wrestle.
Yeah, and I love Paul and Rochelle.
Mm.
They're a little difficult,
Mm.
and so they can never get more than 10, because somebody would always just like, no, I'm fucking done with this
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah.
And then they would all like, you opened a class and suddenly there was 50 people in the
It wasn't
room.
even a pop-up class. It was a pop-up shala. It was like a pop-up restaurant in the middle.
And it was like, wait, fucking 50? And like at that point, Paul and Rochelle, I think, really learned the lesson that it was them.
I don't know. Do you think so?
Yeah, that I do. That they gave up teaching because they realized that, they had been, hammering away. They just thought it was Toronto. They thought Toronto just didn't have the people to support a shala. They're like, why don't we have 50 people? I was like, well,
Yeah.
David is why you don't have 50 people. Because,
I
so
remember
can
thinking,
you
thank
tell us
God.
about that? Like, what do you have that brings people into the room?
I
No.
yeah, back then we had I remember contacting them because we tried to maintain a connection, even though we were in competition, whatever, like,
Yeah, sure.
Your family.
right.
You got to maintain the
Well,
connection.
But it's also like, this is my herd, this is your herd.
Yeah.
But still, like when you know each other, and you're in this Ashtanga world, it is weird. It is like a family. Like even if you don't like someone, like you're gonna see them again.
Yeah.
You're gonna end up at the same lunch. You're gonna
Especially
spend time with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially back then, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how can we kind of like work together?
Yeah.
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 And we co-hosted Sharath Jois together, and
Yeah.
we were trying to work together for a while, but yeah, they would ask me, like, why are they there? Like, why they're traveling like past our shala to go to your shala? It was
Yeah.
awkward, and we were growing and growing, and we had at one point when we got to about 100 in the morning every day, that they called me and offered to come and teach at the studio.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I never saw them at the studio.
No, they never came.
So that's how I went.
I said, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. And then that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
But they pushed it to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, what do you think it was? What makes your way of teaching more appealing or more accessible for students?
I don't know. I mean, I went to their shala
Yeah.
a couple of times. It was fine when I was there. But I wasn't their student, I didn't like develop. So there might have been something interpersonal that was happening there that,
Mhm.
but I didn't get into that. But I know they're complicated.
Yeah.
But do you think it's like a teaching, like like, are you less strict? Do you let people do handstands? Do you like what is it that
No, we were teaching exactly like
She doesn't think so.
no.
David has had like I've never met Paul and
I
Rochelle.
think Dad talking about them.
no, I'm saying
Yeah.
I don't know that period. Like I came just after that.
Right. Okay.
Like I just showed up, so I don't know anything. But David has had a reputation as being extremely strict.
Interesting.
And very much like, like there's the gatekeepers and this is how we do it. And this is
well,
the
maybe,
pizza. Like, so he was known for like mimicking the Mysore setting to like as best as possible. So I'm just adding that comment because it was very like and still the room is very strict and structured.
Yeah. It's softer
It's
now.
softer now.
Yeah.
But you were very like,
Yeah. I was always just copying. Sure. I mean, I wasn't speaking with an Indian accent and all that stuff, but I was just trying to model it on exactly what he was doing because I figured that was my job. You know,
well, maybe people really enjoyed that too.
that's what I think they enjoyed. Yeah, because I enjoyed going to Mysore. You enjoyed it. We got so much out of that.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, the point of this place, we even call it a Mysore room, is to recreate that here.
Yeah. And that was the reason why I came to the studio. I came to the studio 2009. So just a year after the Ashtanga Yoga Center of Toronto, like opened
The main one.
the main one, the way it is now. And the reason why I came was because of this reputation. Like it's a studio where you will learn it the way it is being taught in Mysore, India. There's no watering down. There's no fluffing things around. There's no putting stuff in or taking things out. And to me, like when I was ready, like I went to different studios as everyone else and you try different styles, like looking for what speaks to you. And it was one of David's students was teaching at like this like generic kind of vinyasa studio, but was teaching half primary with the Sanskrit count. Like, and so I was like, what is this? Like, I wanted that. And so that was the reason why I came to the studio too, is that I wanted the privilege. I couldn't travel to India at the time. So this would be the next best thing. Like I wanted to learn it the way you guys were learning it.
What was it that like attracted you to the tradition? I'm so curious because you said you're like dabbling in yoga.
It was I came from a dance background. I was a ballet dancer, and then to me, I always liked the like and I come from Eastern Europe too. So I think part of like the discipline and the rigidity is what speaks to my soul. It's like comfort language in a way. But then I also was like curious about mindfulness practices. And if I was going to learn a mindfulness practice, I don't want the Western interpretation of it. I wanted like a true teaching.
Yeah.
And
authenticity.
And so that's why I came to the studio. Yeah.
I think that was certainly true for Harmony and I, is that we both were like looking for authenticity in the experience.
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of the magic of what Eddie's shala was in New York for a certain period. For like 20 years. This was the most Indian you could get in the city of New York. Like you couldn't go into an Indian restaurant and have a more Indian experience than going into Eddie's place.
Do you feel like your shala is like that in Toronto?
It's different than Eddie's. I mean,
but like the Indian experience. Do people come in and feel like they're in India, or do they come in and feel like they're in like your universe?
My universe, I think.
Okay.
It wasn't. I mean, we were teaching the dogma of Ashtanga, but there isn't really. I don't have the statues and the
Yeah. Because you're Catholic priest at heart.
Yeah, that's right.
That's interesting because you could have gone the other way. You could have said, "Well, because I'm Catholic, I want more color. I want more experiential embodiment in the room."
I'm not Catholic, but
are you Anglican? Are you Episcopalian? One of those
How
two.
does religious studies and comparative religions play into your yoga journey?
Yeah, I'm bewildered. That's what I am. I have no idea. I'm
Wow,
lost.
and you got baptized in that, did you? That's
Yeah,
good.
I'm
Okay.
baptized in bewilderment.
That's a book title, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a
Write it down. Don't
manual.
forget
Which
it.
one of us is going to write that book?
He is.
He's going to baptize in
Yeah, he
bewilderment?
already has books. He can write another one.
I
Called
already,
Baptized in Bewilderment? It's autobiographical.
Autobiographical. Come on, David.
Is he
and
writing
you
it
do
down?
Yeah.
That's good.
It's hot. That's good. You heard it here first, folks.
Just
Yeah.
let me help you with the cover design. For the book.
yeah, do that. Yeah, great.
That'd be amazing.
But
Congratulations.
I'm
I'll do a
curious.
portrait of you for the book. That's what I'll do. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
Right.
curious. Okay, so like in your shala, do you feel like what's important as far as like the vibe? I think that's an interesting thing
it's
because
yeah.
because people are attracted to that, to the energy, to the vibe, you know.
Well, I think it was an easier sell back in 2000 and aughts and tens.
Yeah.
It's become more difficult. So you've had to change it. It changed at the
Mhm.
shallow too, though, in my
Yeah.
selling.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So when people were coming in initially, it was all about discipline. I was doing the like get up early thing and practice first and then teach and
Yeah.
then I was following up with people, like chasing them down if they didn't come.
Oh.
Yeah. Where were you?
Wow.
Where were you? Why weren't you here? And
Yeah.
I was very very driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
in my
magnetic.
practice, but then in the teaching too, and in the delivery of it, and the
Yeah.
authenticity of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then it was all about practice and commitment, right? But it's changed now for sure. It's much softer.
And
How?
why is that?
Yeah. How and why?
Mm.
Well, because we've all grown up, right? And it's the practice isn't the asanas, and it's definitely not the sequence. And I think what was driving me was the idea of the discipline and holding it was creating a lot of rigidity.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's interesting.
I think it supported other people's rigidity too,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
accessed it. It was very super egoic in a way, like
Yeah.
and so I could guilt people into being there or push them into being there, and it works.
It's an incredible
We
energy.
had like 150 people
Yeah.
coming at one point in the morning,
Mhm. Yeah.
but half of them would have hated me, like they
Their
they
heart.
hate their father, in
Yeah.
some or whatever, or their priest.
Yeah, no, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point it was just like it doesn't make sense, like it doesn't make sense to kind of be creating so much mental tension and judgment
Mm.
when you're
Mhm.
doing the practice.
Yeah.
And
And then we also got together, so that
I
created a
think
lot
it
of
was all
shit.
very similar. I think everything kind of led to the same spot. But yeah, when Yellen and I got together, then there was like a shift, and there was kind of a big, what you guys would know what I'm talking about. Like a lot of things changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in a way, I couldn't kind of maintain that higher than sort of
Mhm.
approach,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was, and yeah, it was like maybe less, I don't know, less effective as a teacher.
Which the old approach?
In that sense, yeah, not less effective as a teacher, less effective as a motivator, because it wasn't like this I don't know how to say it, like faultless kind of approach. Like you could be me. I can.
Oh.
Yes.
You mean?
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
perfect, and you need to strive for perfection.
Why
This is
did
the
you-
ideal? Yeah.
And so did you feel that
Yeah.
the breakup and going with
Well-
Jelena made you somehow vulnerable to that that brush?
Yeah, for sure it did. Yeah, I think
Wow.
yeah.
I
Okay.
remember like there was days when he would go to the studio to teach in the morning and he couldn't do the opening chant. Like he couldn't stand in front of the people and do the chant. Even though at that point, like, we called it kind of like the purge, like
Mm.
People, and it was so funny, like people that got really mad at David's and that left were the same people that, a few years before that were in the change room and were showing up every day to the practice, but then every day in the change room, like talking like really negatively about David. And it was this, what David was talking about, like where he created that energy, but people were almost like fearing him and they were being guilted into showing up, and kind of like the daddy issues start to show up around that. And so when him and I get together, these are the first people that start to kind of pass on strong judgments. One of the funny things is that some of those people have returned to the studio since,
Quite a
and
few,
quite a
yeah.
few,
Yeah.
because at the moment, what we were doing was reflecting something in their lives too. Either they were going through the same thing or they weren't feeling brave enough to do the same thing, to pursue happiness over what socially is acceptable and all of these things. But all that, I remember David like being in front of the room, not being able to do the chant or starting to do the chant and having a complete freeze, like, chant that he's been doing at that point for like 20 years,
15 years.
15 years, all of a sudden like being like, I can't do it. Like, and feeling that kind of
Yeah.
like you've let them down or
Yeah, it was I had to find my place again, inside of that, because I was walking in with a mask before,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was comfortable and stuff. But then when I took the mask off, it took me a while
Yeah.
to be okay with that too,
And
and yet,
Mhm.
the mask wasn't me, and really what I was offering wasn't that mask.
yeah,
Mhm.
vulnerability, like it didn't come slowly. It was like right there, like
Mm.
in
Mhm.
front of the room, forget the chant.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I love that you keep bringing up like this projection of the parents, because I think that's so natural for students to do. We project our parent figure onto our teachers.
Mm.
Even when you're an adult, there's always like transference and
Yeah.
countertransference and all kinds of interesting psychological dynamics going
Right.
on. And
Yeah.
even for you as a teacher, you kind of take on that role as like the father or the mother. And when you do have this kind of breakup, a divorce, a change of partners, or a change of values or whatever, is happening, there's a sense of yeah, like kind of, losing face in a way, but also having to re-find yourself in a role and redefine yourself in a
Mhm.
role and within a relationship with your students, which can be kind of challenging.
Can't.
It
Yeah.
was it was
To say
challenging.
the least.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and you have to do a lot of like deep work within yourself to hold that space where you're like, okay, I have to, ask myself some questions here and figure out who I am now in
Mhm.
this new dynamic or in this new relationship in a way.
I'd like to ask you, because I'm kind of struggling with this myself as a um
Aging
I'm not a
teacher?
yoga teacher though. I'm your assistant when you call me to show up with you. And so I retired as a yoga teacher, So but there was a point where I was militantly orthodox
Mm.
and took so much pride, and so much a part of my identity was being a militantly orthodox person.
Mhm.
That was, maybe funny and people liked, but like I was there again, as you said so beautifully, transmit what Patabi Jois and Sharath and Saraswati had taught me. But really I was teaching Guy Donahay's class, but I was there as a flag bearer of Mysore.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Um,
like that too, for sure. Shroud
Yeah.
soldiers.
right, Sharath
Sriracha.
soldiers.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I had a whole life and history of things that interrupted at points the being an Ashtanga yoga teacher, that were personal and professional. But coming back to the room now, when I come back to the room, I often encounter chaos, orthodox chaos, and understanding that, well, this is a different time, and people now get to be themselves, and the role of teacher as a fascist dictator is kind of a dinosaur. And now we're kind of building a kind of collective identity together, and we're engaging with what the student needs, which I hate. We went to a class in Sweden, and everyone was exactingly Orthodox, and it was like,
But in like a really soft, gentle way. It was
this
really
is
interesting.
so nice to that people just do what they're fucking told.
Well, you teach a lot of workshops, so and like go and travel and see different people in their home environments around the world, and so I think you can relate. You go into some rooms and it's like abstract painting, and then you go into other rooms and it's like a perfect portrait.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
How do you manage that?
We vet the studios a little bit, you know, when we're invited. We look at because we ended up going some places where it was just too much, and they hated us. Like they just couldn't click with.
At some point, like I remember being in some places and I was like, why did you invite us? Like, and why am I here? Because when I go over and like I try to correct something, meaning like assuming, actually, I should say assuming, like you paid money and this is what you want from me. This is like what you expect from me. And then they would get into a fight with me about why am I changing the position of their feet, or like telling, and I was like, but
because
if you showed up, I just for this weekend, let's do it this way. And then you do it whatever other way, because you showed up here. And at first it was same as what you're saying, Russell. It was like really hard. And we were like, you know, like being super orthodox about it, very strict, like telling people like, no, that's wrong. You can't do that pose. And why are you doing this pose? And then we realized like over the years, which is, I think, like just aging and wisdom, I think, I don't know. It's like
Exhaustion.
We just now kind of turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
You know, like when people are doing things that we
point,
think that they shouldn't, or let's say they're doing way more poses than they should, and we think like you're actually gonna hurt your body, like then we just stop physically assisting at that point, and we still let them be there. And then we, you know, talk, or we say something and we say like, well, if you went and you practice with our teacher, like this is how it's done. And if you come to our shala, this is how it's done. But when we travel, we definitely have had to let go and let the abstract painting just be abstract painting. You know, I like that analogy. And otherwise it becomes too stressful for us, too stressful for students. And because they're not necessarily our students, we don't know the story behind what is happening and who has taught them that. And often people are doing something because a teacher has told them, you know, it's so we've had to soften.
I think if we have enough time with people, we can kind of convince them, sway them
Yeah.
a little bit, you know, and like, if it's like a few days or a week or something, you're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna change things. That's so better to have a positive effect, positive presence there than just spend the week being no, don't.
Yeah.
Yelling.
But you know,
Shaking fingers.
Yeah, that's what people always like. They think like that's how we teach. We're like, you know, like we don't actually ever do that. So funny when we teach. You know what was one very interesting? One of our students started with David like long time ago, and like David's studio, and I say David's studio, this is before I was part of it, was the very first yoga studio that they ever walked into. And it's funny, we have so many people in our room that they've never done anything but Mysore style. Like we were the studio of the neighborhood. They walked in, and to them it made perfect sense that you would learn pose by pose. The teacher would teach it slowly to you, you know, all of these things that intimidate people coming from the vinyasa and different lead classes. And so this student of ours, she ended up going, she was traveling somewhere and she went to the Ashtanga studio, but it was kind of Ashtanga interpretive, like, you know, like an interpretive dance.
Yes, we know this kind.
Yeah. And she came back, and it was the first time that she did the practice, not at her studio, our studio. And she was shocked at how disturbed she was by the chaos in the room. That there was blankets and straps and blocks, and everyone's doing a different version of all the poses. And when she came back, she realized, she's like, the structure actually creates this like really safe and calm container.
Yeah.
And how much she appreciated that this is the way we have been teaching and continue to teach. So this kind of going back to this idea of orthodox, where it can, if it's done in a proper way, it is actually very supportive.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think there's definitely an argument for that. I mean, I remember going to Richard Freeman's Mysore class. I remember going to Nancy Gilgoff's Mysore class as a very traditional, very like only Mysore India doing Mysore style
As it's
practitioner,
done this
teacher,
year,
and current up to date.
current of today.
And being like completely dysregulated by the rooms because they were, let's say, so creative and expressive, and
There's so much research going
so
on.
much research happening, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I feel like my teaching's evolved. I don't think that, I think I'm actually still a pretty traditional teacher when it comes to Mysore style, but I think like you, I don't hold a regular space. I'm always in someone else's room and someone else's space. So when in that capacity, I kind of actually enjoy that role where I just get to like help people's practices a little bit.
exactly.
And I'm not like there to, kind of like change their entire lives. I think if I were to hold my own room regularly again, it would be a much stricter space than the one that I teach when I'm traveling and visiting
Yeah.
and holding workshops and retreats,
Yeah, our home studio is still strict. I mean, it's not like it used to be in the sense. I think the mindset behind it has changed, but basically the options are the same.
Yeah, it's just that the delivery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's something to this also. Like I always get a little perplexed when students can't, do Ekapada Shirshasana or leg behind the head. Primary I'm sort of like, okay, whatever.
Why are
You
you
can get
doing
through primary
third?
without doing it. But
Okay.
if you can't do Ekapada Shirshasana, you can't do Dvaipada Shirshasana. You can't
Yeah,
do
makes
Yogi Nidrasana. You can't do any of the first third of third series. Like,
Yeah.
where are you going with this? What's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point?
Yeah. If we have people come visit us and then for a couple of days, whatever, we'll just like
Yeah.
welcome, and we make space and we just talk behind their back, but we don't and then if they decide they're going to stay or if they're moving or something, then they have to kind of get with the program, because that approach will kind of it doesn't make sense from the rest of the room.
Yeah.
Like it kind of throws everything off in a way.
Yeah.
Like, well, why are they doing that?
Yeah.
Some people have certain conditions, and there's always exceptions.
That's true.
But in our room, for the people that are coming all the time, then we need to keep it organized.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to maybe just like at a certain stage in your practice, maybe you don't do Ekapada Shirshasana or Dvipada Shirshasana, and maybe you do Pincha Mayurasana or Mayurasana or some of these other postures that are more accessible for your body. But that's like, as you're saying, a more like case by case basis where you're really able to like work with the student and also find out what their goals are. I mean, for me, I don't really see much point in third series postures if you're just doing yoga to maintain the health of your body. I don't know about you, but like as I've aged, I'm sort of like, yeah, they're fun, but they're not like something that I feel like is giving me like more, I don't know, like I don't need to do those in my daily life in a way, right? Like I don't need to, stand up with my leg behind my head. I don't need that range of motion to be a healthy human.
Yeah, I totally agree. I kind of figure out how to plug our computer.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Take a moment.
It's a bit short. All right, yeah. working out. The, yeah, I agree totally. And I think it's just driven too by what somebody wants. Like we do have people that are in their 60s still doing third series,
Mhm.
but they didn't learn it in their 60s. They were doing it before.
Right.
And,
Oh, cute.
one
So-
person comes to mind, then they got degeneration of the discs in the neck and stuff. So they can't
Yeah,
put
yeah.
meat on their head anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to figure out how to get into the poses without having that happen,
Yeah.
down any weight on the head. But she wants to do that, and where she wants to modify, that's fine. And we're not really progressing so much now, going forward anymore. But I'm impressed, like to maintain the practice. She comes every day. She's got an incredible practice. I had a terrible shoulder injury for a long time. I couldn't, I was really restricted, and I had to keep reminding Sharath that I couldn't like do things like catching or whatever because
Yeah.
it would make it so much worse.
Yeah.
But he also kept giving me poses too. Like he didn't. I'd be like, really?
Wow.
Just do what you can.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I would come every year and say, this is still bothering me. Maybe I should just do primary this, and he's like, no, do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And that was a big change too that happened, watching him too, like with age and experience, like the softness that came out in his teachings
Mhm. Oh yeah.
too, and
it totally changed.
the way he was all like very like, oh, good, very good,
Yeah.
nice.
Started talking to you in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he's pulling you and he's good,
So nice.
easy, oh, so good. And I'm like dying, my arms out, like heels off the floor. I'm like, it's a shit show. He's like, very good. And so that's like, that's something that, oh my God, he like really wants to be part of this interview. That it makes sense that watching him,
we changed too.
We
Yeah. And I guess
changed
we're
too.
still reflecting the shala, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting. One of the things that really kind of helped me was this. I was reading Deskachar's book, and he was talking about krama and thinking about how I organize and structure the Mysore room in terms of krama was helpful because I couldn't stomach how I could have different standards for different people. It's like, well, my old student, she sits there in the corner, Rethel, and she listens to her earpods. She listens to music. It's just the way it is. And then another student is going through a highly rigid Orthodox structure to get through third series. And then I've got, like Sydney. And then I've got Frank, who's just kind of like struggling in the beginning part of second series because I felt like he needed some backbends. I'm like, how do I rationalize this to a guest teacher who's subbing for me without being sick to my stomach? Yeah. And then, but Deskachar taught me how to, in that, if you think about that Patabi Jois and Sharath were masters and really specialists at Vinyasa Krama of a perfection system, Vinyasa Krama perfection system. And then you have some people in the room who do perfection system, and they're probably going to teach yoga at some point, and they may even take over the shala for you at some point. They really need to know. And then you've got somebody else who's 70 years old and needs to do some backbending. Maybe they're doing a krama for their health. And Sharath would even talk about this, like, what do you do for somebody who's sick? And you have to devise something for them that's sick. You have to devise a krama for them because they're sick. And then, Harmony and I are in your room, like we're doing maintenance krama. We're sama krama. We're doing that kind of krama. And then suddenly you have a room that you can explain to somebody and it isn't embarrassing. It's like, well, there's people are doing different kinds of Ashtanga yoga here in the same room.
Yeah, I think it just takes a lot of knowledge to be able to offer that, to deliver it well.
Yeah.
But
as
you can't
young
start
people, as young people know, we didn't start that way, did we?
No, and
Yeah.
because you have to learn the orthodoxy first, you have to learn all your scales and get really good before you can try to play jazz or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the work, and then I think it comes very, very naturally, like as a maturation of your experience teaching all
Yeah.
those years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, like, what are you saying now? Because with Sharath's death, and even I found myself in these situations where I'd say, well, in Mysore,
Yeah,
and then
This
I'm
is
like,
how we're-
pause, and then I'm like, well,
yeah,
this is how it would have been done.
yeah. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, how are you guys dealing with it? How are you handling it? How are you going through that kind of transition?
Yeah, I know that's what really shook me so much too, like that I couldn't point to the room, in my story as a thing that was happening,
Yeah.
and kind of use that support, that structure of saying, well, if you go to my store, then
This is how it
Yeah.
is.
so I'm right because that's what your experience is going to be there.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and then for that to be taken away, it all becomes like a little bit like arbitrary and detached, ungrounded.
Yeah.
Like, well,
Grounded
why
is a
is it
great
like
word.
this? And then
Yeah.
now I'm that teacher that I wasn't crazy about, 20 years ago, that would say, or 15 years ago, that would say, well, back in the 70s when we did it this way, that's why, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, well,
But you don't have any choice now.
yeah.
Now it's time.
Well,
Yeah.
well, no, that's why we're devising our own system of yoga.
And see that's
You're not, because we just laughed so hard.
No, that sentence is
Organized, like
that
even if
sentence-
we really wanted to, we're too stupid to do that.
no. No,
I-
but so it's amazing because that sentence is only absurd to the four of us.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
anyone else listening, is like, yeah, okay, so now you devised your own system. Good, yeah, that's what everyone does. But it's no way we're gonna do
Again,
that.
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, of course.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's such a good observation that I mean, that's the exact same kind of feeling and that I keep running up against.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because for the first, it's not like, funny the way we've been laughing at funny stuff that's not funny. For a first little while, like make David cry, like that question, like he would almost like few times he teared up and got really like emotional and like got shaken by it, that now he can't make that reference. Like you actually can't say that anymore.
Or to keep using the past tense, like
Yeah,
just to
switch.
keep
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Mm.
this is the way he was teaching as this, like
Yeah.
I think another really kind of horrendous problem we now have is that if you have your own room and you find like there's always somebody in your room that like, ooh, they're special. They can do everything. They're going to learn
Well, this
everything.
happened to Jelena.
Maybe, but like right now,
special.
I mean, is like you get somebody like Jelena in your room
Yeah.
and you say, and so you're going to be a star too, just like me. And I'm going to send you to Mysore when you're ready. We can't do that.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
Mhm.
like you could say
You're going to
say
be
that to
mine.
Jelena. You could say
You're mine now
Listen.
forever. You're special.
Yeah.
You'll stay with me forever and take over this when I'm gone.
Yeah.
That's your only what else do you have to do?
Mhm.
But he could bring her to Mysore or to Sharath's workshop and then to Mysore. And then now it's like, okay, I'm not your teacher. Sharath's your teacher. It's like a whole
You pass it over.
transition
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, where do you send your special students now?
Mhm.
You can't send them to New York. New York's a hellscape.
Yeah.
You're not going to send them to London.
Yeah. No.
No.
I don't know. I mean, are we talking about like asanas and like moving through the sequence? Someone wants
No. Just
Or-
I
where-
want to be authorized someday. I'm Jelena.
Or
Where
I
do I
don't
get
know, like-
my special degree?
Yeah, to be determined, I guess. you know.
Or is it the end? Like, I mean, also that's another question. Like, I mean, you've been teaching for a long time, David, and you've seen this evolution of yoga teaching. I
Mhm.
mean, what do you think I mean, even for me, I think teachers get paid less now than when I started teaching in 2002.
For sure, yeah. There's so
So,
many more of them, I guess, now, and
I mean, is even being a yoga teacher or being authorized, like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
Like, what does that mean for you guys? Like, what does certification mean? What does authorization mean?
I I honestly, I don't know that certification maybe changes things. Like authorization, like where I was and then getting authorized, that doesn't really change
Yeah.
much. You know, maybe because I was already teaching. Maybe it plays differently for someone who wasn't teaching, and then they would have gotten authorized, and then that gave them like whether like a confidence or permission or whatever to then step on that path.
Mhm.
Um, for me, it was more special because, you know, like the way it came about, and I think it's more special that it happened because he passed away,
Mhm.
and he told me to Miami when I told him because I wanted to ask him um if I could come to Virginia and maybe just come for the class in the morning.
All
And he's like,
right.
but why aren't you doing the whole thing? And I said, because I'm not authorized. He's like, what?
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, he really didn't know
And you're
sometimes.
supposed to ask. Like he can't keep a track of
Yeah.
that many people. So getting authorized this season for me was more of like because like it was known. Like he told me in Miami, he's like, "Well, come to Virginia, and in February you're gonna get." And so it was
So
more
sweet.
emotional and special because of his passing.
Do you think it was emotional and special because you already had his blessing, though? Do you think it was like meaningful because he said to you, like, oh, what? Like, you're not, of course, come to Virginia, which was like the special training for only authorized people. I mean, obviously, he considered you authorized already. And
Yeah.
this was just like a symbol of that emotional connection that you had to him. I don't know. You tell me. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I had like a David kept like the last 2 years, like he was saying, he's like, go ask, go ask. And I'm always weird about asking anything. And I don't say, I always also say this, not because I'm like so humble. I'm like just weird. And like, I won't ask David to do things. I rather be overwhelmed and then get mad at him than ask for help or ask for something.
Yeah.
And so David's been on me like, go ask. And then this season, David said, if you don't go in, I'm going to go in for you and ask because he thinks you're authorized.
Yeah.
I've always practiced in the earliest shift, which is
Yeah.
because, and
Yeah, 'cause
so, yeah, he just had it all. So it makes it, I don't know, maybe to me makes it special because I had that conversation with him in Miami while we were eating ice cream and like, just his reaction when I said, because I'm not authorized. And he's like, and then he gave me, last year, he gave me I had his number so that I could send him pictures of tigers when at on safari.
Yeah.
And so I had his number. So he's like, well, why didn't you like message me and tell me? And I was like, I'm going to message you about my authorization. Like,
Yeah, no.
what's not what
so
you
cute.
do?
That's
I
not
was
what
like,
it's
I
for.
have your number to send tiger photos.
Mm.
Anyway, so for me, that's what made it really special. But I don't think really like teaching wise that it has had like a big impact on me being able to book more workshops or
No.
with students. Like,
No.
unfortunately, no.
Yeah,
I
no.
wish, but no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm curious even for certification, David, because I mean, you two were very popular teachers before you were authorized and before you were certified, David. I mean, you already had like, you know,
As many as you want.
yeah, like
Yeah.
everything there. You had the books, you had the videos, you had everything. I mean, what does certification mean to you? What does that
They're different
symbol
things,
mean?
right? They're like,
Yeah.
I mean, the sort of being, I don't know how to say it, like being popular on social media or teaching the workshops around and is is it's your peers recognition, or your not even your peers, the students, that you've created something that people want to get, and so that's good that you feel good about that. But it's different than Sharath Jois saying,
certifying you.
saying that, certifying you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like,
There's a validation there for
Yeah.
Yeah.
personally for all the work that you did that was only visible to him.
well, he didn't certify me, right? So
Did he ever? He didn't ever say that that he would do that.
no, he never mentioned it.
So what is it?
I'm sorry. Can I ask how far along were you in advance?
With him, and Gandabarandasana. Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
really, Viparita Shalabhasana.
Sure.
Funny story.
Oh my
about that,
God.
too.
Oh,
'Cause
that's such a good story.
I've been there for he was just he was being really sweet to me, like all for the last little while, kind of making up for all those years when he wasn't.
I mean,
you know,
so strict
and
and yeah.
and I mean, I was scared of him for a long time.
Sure.
Like, still was at the end a little bit too, but and then you want it, like Jelena, like you want to be given something, but you don't want to ask for it because it changes, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I wasn't chasing him for poses and stuff like that, but I think too, like a bunch of his older students, he stopped kind of
Paying
like,
attention to, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
in the same way, but I
Yeah.
don't want them to. I'm not pretty to watch. So, but so I was doing that, and I was kind of proud of myself last year, not this season in Mysore, obviously, but the last year there,
Yeah.
and I didn't ask him if I could split, but I've been doing all of intermediate and all of third up to Gandhar and Boston
Oh.
for a few years.
Yeah.
And every year at the end, I'm like, when do you think I can split? But I always wait till the end of the season. And every year he says next season, but I never just split. I wait until the end. I wait for him to tell me that season, and then he never does. So I ask again. So I did it again. And he was standing there. I'd waited, you know how you do. Yeah, you done. Waited for him till I knew I was in his eye line. And then I did a beautiful, lift up into Viparita Dandasana, and then Viparita Shalabhasana. And then I'm holding it, and then I come down and whatever. Right? And then he's not saying anything. So I get up. I'm waiting for him for back bends, and he comes over, and I'm like, so when do you think I should split? It was like, well, what pose are you on? Like,
I just saw it. You just saw it, dude.
Viparita Shalabhasana. And he's like, Viparita Shalabhasana? Yeah. Viparita Shalabhasana.
Yeah, he wrote it out for you.
Yeah. And he's like, and he just did that. He didn't say anything. And that was it. That was
It sums up your relationship.
that was very relational.
Wow.
That's insane. That's so funny.
Practices like way back. I used to go further in my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, with him, and yeah, so that's where I was finished. Yeah,
Wow.
I guess last pose I got from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so how did it come about in Mysore that Shruti offered it to you?
I was told by Usha. Jelena was being authorized, and we all knew that kind of. But there was other people being authorized too. So, and
Todd had got certified.
Todd got certified the month before we were there. So we were there for February, and then I think it was about halfway through the month, and Jelena went up to the office to she was going to go get her certificate, whatever authorization thing. And Shruti told me, go up and see Usha. It's all been organized. And I was like, what? And then
we just assumed it was like
I thought,
my paperwork.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so then I was just sitting there, and then Usha did everything with Jelena, and then handed me a piece of paper and said, put your name down here. You're being certified. And I was like, what?
What? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I was surprised.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And it was so funny in the office because he just kept repeating. He's like, but what? Like, Usha, like, are you sure? Like, and Usha's like, yeah, like, we've talked about it. We don't know who's the we, but Usha said, we talked about it. It's been discussed. And David's like, but, like, really? At some point, I was like, just like, shut up. Let's,
Well,
Sign it and get out of here.
yeah. Before they change their mind, like, make it and run.
But what does it mean to you? I'm so curious. Like, what did the whole situation? How did you feel when that happened?
Well, I felt and I feel very ambivalent because one, it's not from Sharath, but it'll never be from Sharath, you know.
Yeah.
That ship has sailed in a way. And yeah, I mean, me and the other people that it was given to, we're all surprised.
Yeah, no one knew.
But
apart from Todd.
But thinking about it afterwards, like we went in February to support the shala,
Yeah.
support our community and Shruti and the family.
Yeah.
But we went there because that's where we've always gone. We built our lives around this, you know, and like, what are you gonna do to it? Like, say no, or you know,
no. It's true. I mean,
you know.
It's true. Honestly, I think anyone. I mean, if I'm honest.
Wait.
No, you be honest.
I'm about to be honest.
You be honest.
If I'm sitting there in that room and Shruti and Usha are saying, we want you to get certified, I'm going to ask them how much.
Really?
How much money?
Like, if you want me to pay 10 grand, no.
10 grand. Yeah.
Anything less than that, I think we can have a discussion.
As far as I know, the price hasn't changed for in all these years.
As far as I know, it really depends on who you are.
That's funny.
Yeah, it really depends on who you are. The price has changed. For Tim Miller paid $150.
Whoa, that's
John Campbell paid $3,000. You know, there's a big range. I know people that paid 10 grand.
I think the going rate's 5,000 though.
The going rate is 5,000, and so, like, if you want me to pay 5,000, I really got to think about it.
I think you'd do it. I think you would do it.
I don't think I would. I don't know.
But you're not teaching anymore either.
But even if I was teaching anymore, I know it's not going to make me any more money.
Well, no, it's not.
I went there to support the place and Shruti, and in a way, she's chosen how we're supposed to support her. Maybe she regrets that. Like, I don't know.
Man, but you support her. She's a multimillionaire in India.
Not financially. I mean, I don't think that's the motivation there. I hope not.
Okay, so that's what you mean by support.
Yeah, that's right.
Energetically.
That's but it's financial, energetic support.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that she's doing that for finance. Like, just
I can't imagine that either. She doesn't need the money.
She doesn't need the money, and she's not. That's not what she was doing there.
Yeah.
You know?
So in a way, it's a kind of, the money is significant, but it's a token symbol in exchange for this validation.
It's the same, as far as I know. It's the same price that was being asked, say, last year or whatever. So that was all part of that package.
But it's still it's a token gesture. It's not like $100 grand that's going to actually make a difference to someone.
No, exactly. I mean, I guess she's still taking it, but I also think it has to be something. You have to pay it, I guess, to get that. It doesn't mean anything.
And authorization is thousands of dollars.
True.
Now, I paid $150 for my authorization.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So it's the scale from authorization to certification is not gigantic. It's not $100 grand.
Now, Jelena paid, I don't know, what was it?
2,000. It's been 2,000 for a few, like, I don't know,
sure.
Maybe 10 years now.
I don't know. I mean, she is looking to create support, like more support, and a network of people that are endorsing the shala and trying to hold the community together, and that's how I understood it.
Yeah.
But I did know, okay, well, it's complicated, now,
But I think this brings up an interesting point because, for you, I don't really think that certification does anything.
It validates.
for me.
Well, not from scrutiny.
No, any certification, even if it's from direct from Sharath, like economically,
But no,
popular. No, let me
Economics
finish.
still get it from Sharath. It does something for him.
No, I want to know for him because you said yes, and I think also anyone in your situation probably would have said yes, who was there practicing.
But well, just put yourself in the shoes that you went there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
and
different.
then he tries to give you something.
I wasn't going to do that either.
Yeah, you weren't there.
I
But
wasn't going to go there.
exactly. If I was there practicing in February and I was not certified and I had just been with Sharath when he passed away in Virginia,
Yeah.
and this was offered to me, of course I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
100% I say yes every time.
Yeah, but I'm not that person who's in that position.
Yeah, so that's not my question. So, but then my question is what does it mean to you? Because I think that's the most important thing, because it seems like it would be emotional and significant.
It is emotional, yeah. It is. It's significant in a different way. Like I don't know. I can't. You're right. I don't think it changes anything for me in the sense of what I was doing before in a business sense, or even, in our community, there's people that are going around and teaching and are known on and stuff. So this hasn't changed that in any kind of positive way.
Has it changed it in a negative way?
Getting a target of me,
Really?
right?
Yeah.
But
That'll pass too.
yeah, it'll pass.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. But that's what I'm thinking is, okay, going forward, there's a responsibility to it, right? This was the idea of it. And it's kind of, it's certifying your responsibility in a way. Like my responsibility is still to that shala.
Yeah.
And so going forward, that's what I'll continue to do. And I would have anyways without the certificate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would just like to say that, I know guys like Russell Kai got certified after doing Kashibasana. He's doing the third posture of third series and got certified. How far along you are in advanced, whatever. What I know.
Well, yeah, certified that didn't finish third.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I know about you and your stature in the community and your dedication to Sharath and your unwavering loyalty to him as a teacher, it's completely deserved, and you should be validated to have that certification. And that makes complete sense. And I assumed that he had said, "Oh yeah, you'll get certified next trip," and then he died. That's so. But I have no doubt that he would have eventually.
I think
A
eventually,
year, 2 years,
Maybe 20 years did.
maybe 20 years.
maybe.
Sometimes
teasing.
he's difficult with people. Yeah.
He had a joke that I would have gotten.
Yeah, she was going to get certified before we
Probably.
authorization and go straight to certified.
Yeah, good.
Well, thanks, Robson. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, that's really kind of you.
It's deserved.
No, you know what? We've both been in that in the same community as you both for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And there's sometimes people receive certification and you're like, what the fuck? No, literally, like,
Wait a second.
right? Like,
Or
I
something-
don't know if you've had that reaction, but I've had that reaction several times.
Yeah. But it was also like, well, it's not my choice.
No,
Exactly. So
It's
you're just
like-
like, okay.
And there's people that have finished fourth and not received certification.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
There
have
was
said,
there was
"What the
kept
fuck?"
arbitrary quality to it. And then
Yeah.
everybody just kind of, you would say, well, you might think or whatever. Oh, well, I don't know what that's about, but okay. You wouldn't
Yeah.
think I'm going to write a stern letter to Sharath Jois.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm gonna make a podcast and attack his wife on,
I
So-
really and there's amazing practitioners, like asana perfect practitioners who never receive certification.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So
We both know them. We all know them.
so when I saw, on social media, all of the certifications that were being handed out and the certificates of friendship and support. I don't know what's going.
What do they call devote dedication?
Dedication
Oh,
award.
certificate of dedication. That's nice.
That is
That's nice. I like
That
it.
was apparently his idea that he was given.
We did one last year.
Yeah, and one of the people that received it was told by him in Miami that they were gonna get it. Like, so
Amazing.
he wanted to celebrate people in
Mhm.
different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's so
Allison
nice.
totally deserves that.
No,
so
that's
nice.
cool. That's what I don't know how that.
But
Yeah.
there was no one. I mean, when I saw it, I initially was like, "What is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah.
People are being certified by Sharath's ghost,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
And I mean, it takes me you have your reactions, your emotional reactions. I mean, it is like a confusing kind of emotional landscape to cross because you're like, well, what does this mean? Like, is it valid? Does this make all the other certifications invalid? Or does this, like, what's going on, right? So you have an emotional reaction, of course.
Sure. Yeah. I think I would have, if I hadn't been there and I was seeing it, I would have felt the same way. Totally.
But then I looked at the people and I was
you
like,
can't fault the people.
and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like, this doesn't even really matter because I know all of these people.
Yeah.
They're my friends.
I
And
was-
I know how much dedication and
I wasn't totally sure about Tim.
Tim, the mayor? He's going to give the mayor of Mysore?
Mysore. I
Yeah.
sent him a text message. I said, I guess you're officially the mayor of Mysore.
Yeah.
But like all of the people that were acknowledged and received, certificates
Yeah.
on that stage that I saw on the social media post, I know how much they were dedicated to this practice. I know how many years they put in of like blood, sweat, and tears and money and trips to India and leaving family and leaving friends and leaving their shalas and just like, it's hard because people sometimes don't understand that kind of sacrifice unless you've done it. And when you've done it, when you know that kind of sacrifice and the decades, because it was decades for everyone there involved of like basically almost annual trips for almost everyone there,
It's
right?
all of your wealth.
I mean, you can't, I don't know. I was like, well, I don't think there's an argument. I mean, they deserve it. They deserve to be recognized for this. I mean, and yeah, are there other people who could have been recognized? For sure. 100%. Other people could have been recognized and possibly will be recognized. I don't know.
Hopefully they will be
Yeah.
recognized as well.
I was curious about this because my first impulse was like, but there's so many like hundreds of Asians who have spectacular practices that we don't know their names, who are also probably like around the same place that Tim is in his practice or Susan Hounsel, like how are we gonna does anyone remember them? Like when are they gonna get their due? These kind of, and I just like my concern, I guess my concern were the choices by the judicial board, were they arbitrary? And just like, these are people we know, but like, you don't speak Chinese, maybe you don't know those people. Like there's hundreds of them that are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they still can't come to India, right? None of the Chinese students, unless they have a foreign citizenship, they're still not able to. That's
The visas.
get the visa. That's why a few of our friends that we know have come all the way to Miami because that was an
Wow.
opportunity for them to come and practice with them. Because since COVID, the relationship between India and China, they're not
Right.
come.
God, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like, and that's like a large population of like
Huge.
the student body from the shala.
Yeah.
And so none of them are still able to come there at all.
I don't really worry about it anyways, because it's not up to me.
Yeah.
None of it is up to me.
Yeah.
And it never was. It wasn't up to me when Sharath was living. God, she
No.
was, and it's not up to me now. It's not my purview. No one's asking me or consulting me.
No will they ever.
No, yeah,
No,
it's
really.
a little opinion.
No,
It's
you're
not-
you're a senior member of the community,
yeah, that's right.
actually, and you're certified. I would
Right.
think that you would be someone that someone would ask their opinion.
Maybe
Maybe
if
down
that's
the
the way it
line.
goes,
Yeah.
then it won't even be us that sets that up. You know, like none of us
Yeah.
Oh,
have
yeah.
any kind of ownership of
Yeah.
those processes, and we're not even necessarily owed an explanation. You know what I mean? If we
It's
can,
true.
yeah. So I don't know, and I I think we need to give Shruti space and time. You know, like
Yeah.
and she's got to figure out what she wants to do that way, and but it's all up to her. It's not up to any of us.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, she owns the shala. It's
Mhm.
literally her property. And if she decides to continue to invite people to come practice there, that's also up to her and her
Mhm.
And then
prerogative.
it's up to them if they want to go, you
Yeah,
know?
that's right.
Yeah.
And if we're going to go, be good, you know,
Yeah.
go there and be good, support
Ah,
and do your practice. And
Yeah. Yeah,
In-
totally.
in this-
100%.
And the same way the Shala in Gokulam or the Shala in Lakshipuram was exactly the same mirage. We
Yeah.
created the value that it had. We created the value of Guruji's blessing. And then there was some negotiation and people started, creating certificates and authorizations. And then we assigned value to those. And it was all our doing. And so, exactly, if people want to do that in Shruti's airplane hangar, then let's admire the how the epic unfolds.
Because the student picks the teacher. That's
Yeah,
at the end of the
exactly.
day. The
Circle.
student picks the teacher.
But when we were there in February, like it was very difficult time, but in another way, it was like really beautiful. And when we realized that the shala was going to be open after all, we just said, yeah, we're going to go. We were supposed to go in February, and then we said we would go. And the energy in the shala was really beautiful. Like, and it was very different. Of course, it was going to be different, that it wasn't going to be the same, but it was beautiful in a way that, like, we came not knowing that there would be any assisting. Like, we signed up that we were coming when we all received the letter saying that we all show up and everyone's on their mat. No one's assisting anyone. There's no
Yeah.
teacher. There's nothing.
That made sense to me too. Like,
And that we were like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We go and we show the support for the community. And when I speak of the community, like when you think about how many people in Mysore and Gokulam depend on us to come and have made their livelihoods around having these bursts of bubbles when the people come from abroad and they go to the restaurants and the shops and buy the food and rent the apartments, and that supports their family, that supports their livelihood. So it wasn't just about supporting the family, but it was supporting like the community that's created around the shala. And so we showed up with that intention. And I think everyone else that did showed up with that intention. So there's that. Then there is Shruti and the family who, I mean, she has just lost her husband. And yet she is showing up, opening the shala and holding the space for us, in a way that we can come together and practice. And there was something so beautiful to practice in the room. And you look around the room and you're like, oh, I know that face, and I know that face, and I know that person. And it felt really healing. And there was days when the whole shala was just crying, and then there was the days when we were all giggling. And then on top of that, the month before, they started coming up with this kind of assisting system and watching people and, even adding poses on. And so then in February, that continued. But none of that was planned when the doors were open. It was very kind of organic. And it kept growing into what it was in the February. And then we realized, like, Todd messaged me to say that he was going to get certified, which was like a total shock to him as well. But we all were there when Sharath Jois said in Miami. So we knew that part was coming. And then I remember saying to David, I was like, if Todd's going to get certified, I listed the people.
She did, actually. She called it.
I called the people. I
Yeah.
said, and these are the next people that need to be certified. And David's like, why do you say that? And I said, the time. Like, it's just about the time. Like, how many trips have all of you taken? And we're not even talking about 1 decade, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
all 22 years or plus of
Yeah.
people showing up. Like, does that not deserve a celebration? And for me, the way I understood that was being done in a way of this very like sad moment, and it's still ongoing. There was like this little burst of celebration and celebrating his legacy by acknowledging people in different ways.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
authorizing certain people, certifying certain people, and then also acknowledging, you know, senior students that have been coming and dedicating their lives. And to me, like being a student in that room and watching it happen was very kind of like it felt like unifying and uplifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so
And there's something too about maintaining the viability of the shala by keeping it as a place for students coming and new people coming, where there's something that they're going to get from being there.
Mm.
You know, so keeping that option open of giving authorization or certification or new asanas, you know, that keeps it a living space, right? Like growth can happen there and change can happen. And maybe first, I know some people it's happening too fast. It was too soon for that to, I understand that, but at the same time, I can understand the concern as well. Like, you know, that would motivate Shruti to want it people to see, look, we can do this. You know, like there's a reason to come here, and we can maintain this. We'll figure out a way forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting if someone did an interview. There was quite a few first timers, which I was most impressed with. Like that after all of that, they didn't cancel or go to another shala, which some people did do, go to one of the other places in a competition. Yeah. But the people that showed up for the first time, and so many of them approached us at the end of the trip, and they're like, this is our first time, and we can't wait to be back.
Yeah.
And they
interesting.
absolutely like loved it. And to me, it was
Oh,
like,
that's
I was like,
awesome.
but what did you like?
Yeah, what was it? Yeah. Well, they got to study with Keno McGregor. That's awesome. Who wouldn't
What
love
was
that?
you know, like you're surrounded by senior teachers. Like there was, you know, and they're in the room, they're walking around, like, you know, some of those people, you've seen them maybe online, you've studied with some of them, because a lot of first timers in the shala have come and studied with all of us somewhere abroad, you know, and probably what inspired them in the first place to make that trip. And so for some of them to say, like, I felt like that was like that was like the most important feedback for the shala, is that the first timers like loved it, because it made sense we would.
You know, for me, like when I went to Mysore, it was not the same as being in a real Mysore room in New York, and it was like nobody's paying attention, no one's adjusting. You know, like this is a chaos in here. And I go back to New York and I get some real work done. Yeah, because you know you're getting adjusted a lot, you're getting a lot of attention on your practice. But that didn't stop me from going back to Mysore year after year after year, because it's really kind of amazing being in Mysore, being
There's
in
different
India.
work too, right? You're doing a different kind of work.
Oh, for sure.
I think we had different experiences because I never had a teacher, a
That's
regular
true.
teacher. I never had a room to practice in.
Not a
So
real one.
Well,
I didn't have any room.
What? Right?
Yeah, it was just like by myself, and I was teaching all the
Mm.
time. So I was always practicing by myself in the morning or with fellow teachers when I was at the retreat center. We practice together in the morning, and then, but there was no like Mysore room for me unless I was in India, and so that was the only.
So you've never really experienced it.
I've never had a Mysore teacher outside of Sharath and Guruji.
You never really,
So
never had one. Okay.
like for a long period of time, like over like the longest would be a couple weeks, at like in Goa, Purple Valley or something, where I'd practice with a teacher for a couple weeks. So that was always there's something magical about being in that room with other practitioners, having that routine, not having to go to work or do anything else, just like living the yoga life, doing the chanting and doing the studying the philosophy and
learning an instrument.
Yeah, eating the food.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure, it'd be an amazing experience for a first timer. I'm not. There's no not surprised.
And being in the community. I mean, there's something so powerful about being in this with this group of people who and kind of. I mean, for us, I don't know. Maybe we were lucky that we had smaller groups of people when we were coming up because the relationships and the friendships and the connections. Like what we were saying at the beginning, it is like family. Even if you don't see someone or talk to them, or even if you're like, oh, that's just so and so, or like, you have like all these like feelings, different feelings about people. At the heart of it, like there's like a shared lifeblood that there's respect there in some way. Typically, even if you're like, oh, that person's insane, they're crazy, I don't know what they're doing.
But that's like my uncle Rick is also insane and crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but like you also kind of like you feel them, them, and you're like, yeah, it's we're gonna go hang out and have a beer or whatever.
That's a question I wanted to posit to you guys, and I know we've been on for a long time, and our editor is going to go crazy. I have a follow-up question as well, but the joke that I would make, and I love Susan dearly, but the joke that I would often make, people would say to me is like, well, what do you think the community is going to think? Or what do you think the community, like you're getting a divorce, what is the community going to think? And I would say to them, like, you mean Susan Housel? Because that's what they mean by community. They mean like, she's the one that's going to be like telling everybody, well, you know what Russell did. And it's like, yeah, that's what the community thinks. What I'm trying to say is that the community is a construction that we make. And it's really just our friendships with our people and from our particular period of time. And that's our community. And what, in some way, you've posited or created a construct where the community is the thing that needs to do something or be something other than it's just your own circle of friends, and that there's a responsibility to this construct that we have to have government socialist intervention, because we are Canadian, on the salvation of this community, right? So is that, do you think so, and what is our responsibility if so?
Well, I think it's going to change who you are in the community. Like any community, different people have different roles. But the ones of us that have been around for a long time and are putting ourselves in the position of being teachers, then our role is responsibility. Like is how to carry things forward and in a positive way, and continue our own studies and things like that. And then if you're newer to the community, then you get to kind of enjoy the ride and learn, be supported by those people, like it's not one of those things where everyone has to pay dues. I mean, we all pay our due by practicing, right? Getting on the mat, but that's what kind of gives us membership. Yeah, but I think everyone's kind of got different roles in that sense. If I'm understanding the question properly, like, I mean,
so you do, so thinking of the community as a lineage, and that we have a responsibility to carry on what we learned to a new generation, and that's community, and we have a responsibility to that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying for sure, because we're all more or less saying the same thing, like interested in the same thing, and saying this is what we want to learn and what we're interested in. And so, yeah, our now even more so, our responsibility as the people that have that the direct experience of practicing with the Tabi Jois or with the Sharath Jois, then we have to figure out how to carry that forward.
Mhm.
Like it's more, well, in my opinion, it's more valuable now that he's
Then
gone in that sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's more of a weight, or maybe weight isn't the right, a pull, more of a calling
Mm.
to show up and represent in a way.
Maybe that's just for a while, maybe
Yeah.
who knows what's going to emerge and what's going
Yeah.
to happen at the shala. Maybe it'll be a place we can say again, like, if you go to the shala, then,
Mhm.
or this is the way it is in Mysore.
Yeah.
But right now it's up to us to kind of,
this is
to carry that. Yeah.
Yeah.
this is the way that we've done it, and we have to actually now defend it in some way based on our own experience of why we do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was also talking to David. Like, I study a lot with Jack Cornfield. And so in his teachings, his teacher, Ajahn Chan, has passed away a long time ago.
Mhm.
But when he speaks and he says, my teacher would say this, or my teacher taught me this, or this is where I learned it, there was never in my head as a student of Jack Cornfield, ever a doubt that this is how it was done.
Mm.
And to me, like, they're also a very interesting group of people. Like, there's Jack Cornfield and Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Campbell. And if you look at that whole bubble of them who were one of the first to go and then bring insightful meditation and Vipassana to the West, like, look, none of their teachers are alive anymore, right?
Mhm.
Of course they're not. And the way those teachings and traditions have even become perhaps more popularized around the world now.
Yeah.
Like, of course they're alive in the home countries where they come from, but now around the world too. And these were all the students of Ajahn
Yeah.
Chan or whichever is the other teacher that they studied with. And it never made any of the teachings lesser because there was no chance for me to go and study with Ajahn Chan.
Totally.
Mhm.
I think what you're saying is spot on and powerful, that the essence is being transmitted in the teaching itself, and it doesn't necessarily need to rely on a place or a center or a person, but it's that you've done the practice and you've studied with that and you've received that transmission, and you, both of you, as all the teachers are who have this seed, are transmitting themselves the teachings, and that's what's actually really important.
Yeah, and then it goes back, I think, to Harmony, what you've been emphasizing too. It's like, and then it's students' responsibility, which I think is so important for students to realize that it is their responsibility. They're the ones that are supposed to do all the work of kind of figuring out who's my teacher, who am I going to follow, do the research, spend
Yeah.
time with people, and then choose and stick. It's and so it just comes back to this circle of, again, like, you find the lineage that speaks to you, that will allow you to do the mindfulness practice that you want to do and that you've been drawn to. And then you as a student have to put just as much work as whoever is the teacher holding that lineage alive for you.
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
you don't get anything out of it. I mean, you can go study with, like, I don't know, Richard Freeman all day long, but if you don't do any of the work yourself, I mean, you're not really gonna get anything out of
Don't
it,
actually listen
right?
to what
No.
he's saying. Yeah.
Or I can come to your room and hang out with you guys, but if I don't actually get on my mat and start doing something, there's not going to be any transformation that happens.
But I think it also goes back to your question, Russell, about the community. And I get this. Like, I'm really drawn to Jack for many reasons. I've studied with him. We're still here. For quite some time.
Be here now. Yeah.
Be here now. The emphasis on the sangha, and the importance of sangha in any spiritual pursuit. And that if you don't have sangha, you're basically not going to make it, because sangha is what gives you the support. And I sometimes see us teachers that's maybe the most important part of our job, is that one, we create safe, inclusive spaces where everyone feels welcome to show up. But two, that we create this community, or not, we create it by holding that space, like we have the key, but the community creates itself and the community supports itself. And I always think about these change room conversations that you walk into, and how deep and profound they are, and how vulnerable people are, and people in the room practicing and crying. Like, when do you get to just cry and be yourself in the room, and people are going to hold you and be supportive and non-judgmental? And so I think this sangha is so important. And I think all of us that showed up in February, and not just February, like the 2 months before that as well, you, in the moments of this deep grief, you become aware of that.
Yeah.
That we can lift each other up.
Yeah.
I've often said to people who are thinking about opening up shalas, is like the most important thing you can have is a change room. Yeah. And a change room means that you'll have community, and you'll have people who know each other. And if they know each other, they'll come back.
But Eddie just had that bathroom for a while. Yeah.
It's rough. I was, there was a kind of like a open locker, and I once got to see Willem Dafoe's dick in there. I was really I really felt like I was a part of something.
Hopefully that wasn't a brush with greatness.
It was a brush with greatness, actually, and it was like I really feel like I have a story that I can keep forever now, and I'll always have a connection to this place, to this temple,
To a special member.
special.
Uh-huh.
We probably, this has gone on really like an hour longer than our editor likes. I just really want to say how much I appreciate you guys sharing this. I know this is like, I know you guys were there, and so this is hard. Like there's some grief to this as well, and being there is different with him like than not. So I just want to thank you for having the grace to come on with us.
Thank you very much for having us. I appreciate the topics and the direction it went in. It was good.
Yeah, and the laugh.
Yeah.
No one took themselves too seriously.
No one should take it seriously.
I before we go, see, I have a problem saying goodbye.
No, we're saying goodbye now. This
Like-
is goodbye now. This is the end of hour 2, and you can ask this question offline.
No, I want to say one more thing. I think what you're saying about community is really, really important. And I think having like teachers also need to have supports and community amongst themselves. And we need to also support each other. That's one thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say was I received a backbend adjustment from you in Mysore, David. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember?
No.
When you were assisting Sharath one year, maybe 2015?
16.
2016?
Yeah. No.
And I got a lovely back massage afterwards. And Sharath, and Sharath yelled across the room, "David, no back massage."
That was probably the thing he said to me the most. Yeah.
And I was like, "Don't stop, please. Don't stop."
Yeah. No, listen. I remember being traumatized by him catching me all the time shouting that.
Yeah.
I was like furtively looking around before I would give people squishes. And I would still, even last time I was assisting him in Miami this past November.
Yeah.
And or October. And I would still have the same thing would constantly occur to me. No massage.
No massage.
It's
It's funny because I often, when I think of you, whenever someone mentions your name to me, I always think, no massage. Yeah. You know what's funny? That year, he comes back to the studio and he's like, everyone, like, we've taken this because we give people like, like people are living their everyday lives. They got to run to work, go pick up the kids, whatever. Like, so you release the back after the back bend. And so David comes back and he's like, no one, anything, just hands, push, 10 seconds, go.
Yeah.
And we're like, and he was like so traumatized, literally, from having been yelled at for a month. So then all of us were like, oh, okay, fine. So we start doing that. And at first, all the students were kind of like, fuck, where's my massage? And after a month, our manager starts getting complaints at the front desk. And the first starts with students going over and saying like, well, I think like Jelena's like upset with me like for a week. Like she's just kind of like pushes on me and walks away. And then our manager was like, what? No, that doesn't make sense. But then stories started piling up with basically every teacher and every assistant is mad at someone. And then we realized that it comes back to us. And then the students were just like, no, like you need to bring the massages back.
Bring the massage back.
And then 2 months later, David was like, oh, okay, fine. Like, no one was complaining to our manager.
See, that's funny.
You had like a protest.
The same thing happened to me in Taiwan when I was told to stop holding the buttocks of all the students. And I was like, no, Sharath said that I can't do that anymore. But like, that's the way Patabi Jois taught. You do the back bends, you hold their buttocks, really. I said, no. He gave me the waggy finger. Sharath gave me the waggy finger, no more. And so, but then the complaints came in. It's like, well, how come no one's holding my ass after back bends? So,
I was coming for that.
I was here. I was here for that.
It's been too much fun. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for inviting us.
It's been a real pleasure. It's been a real pleasure.
If we ever decide to cross the country, we'll come say hi in person.
Please do. Yeah, same.
Well, thank you so much for listening today. I hope this conversation inspired you to explore how pranayama or breathwork can transform your relationship with stress and support your body through different transitions, hormonal transitions or life transitions. And if today's conversation resonated with you, I'm so excited to share my premier pranayama training and teacher certification course. It's now open for enrollment for this week, Ancient Breathing 2.0. This is an intimate 6-week program where I'm going to guide you through creating a personalized pranayama practice based on your unique constitution and needs. Together, we're going to improve your physical health, deepen your yoga practice, cultivate more emotional stability so you can feel more at ease and truly love your life again. So whether you're dealing with anxiety or disruptive sleep, hormonal fluctuations, or you're simply seeking a deeper connection to that powerful spiritual energy within yourself, this program offers the tools for you to transform your daily experience. You'll receive live community support, at least 6 guided practice sessions, pre-recorded modules, and all the bonus content. There's so much in this program, and this year I'm offering an extension, which is the certification program. So if you want to learn how to help your clients and students with developing their own pranayama practice, this is the program for you. I want you to come inside and sign up. It's open this week, Ancient Breathing 2.0. You can find the link in the show notes. Check it out on harmonyslater.com. And remember, until next time, your breath is always with you. It's your most powerful and accessible tool for finding harmony in everyday life. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.